It's not gonna happen, actually. Try to sneeze feels. Alright. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the video. To my regular subscribers who watch my videos all the time, I love you guys, what's going on? And to someone who might be new watching the channel, I love you too, and welcome to the channel. My name's Amanda, and if you guys haven't been watching, I am currently in a fat loss phase in my fitness journey, and I have recently hit like a little bit of a fat loss stall where I was losing fat initially in the beginning. I'm about 6 weeks in or so at this point in time, and I stopped losing weight as quickly as I was in the beginning. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, in this video, reasons why you might not be losing weight. So before we get started with the video, make sure you guys check me out on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm on those platforms a ton, so you guys can check me out over there, do a little bit more stalking. Then make sure you guys give the video a thumbs up if you're excited about learning about fat loss plateaus, weight changes, fluctuations, reasons why, and let's go ahead and get into it. Before we get started, how many of you guys would totally hate me if I recorded this for my podcast too? I hope it's not distracting, but this video might be long, and I think people on the podcast, I have a podcast if you guys don't know, it's essentially just the audio. It's just me talking, and I wear these weird headphones. Is this distracting for you? If it is, I'm so sorry, but there's a lot of people that don't have time to watch YouTube videos, or they're just commuting and driving quite often, or they just want to listen to something on the go, and they don't listen to YouTube videos, and I want to make sure I help those people too, because this topic is really important, and this video might be long. I'm sorry if it is. I hope you guys aren't offended. I love both my YouTube and podcast people. I think there's a lot of crossover too. So reason number one why you might not be losing fat is that you're eating too much. And I know this is probably something a lot of you guys already know. If you guys have been a subscriber of mine for a while, or you're already like pretty aware of the fact that there's caloric surpluses and caloric deficits, you might not feel like this applies to you. So for you guys, I'm going to give you one helpful tip that's going to help you guys in a second, but otherwise, if you're already aware that being in a caloric deficit is what you need to do to lose weight, the tip for you guys is that you might just need to be lowering your calories a little bit more just to get further into a deficit.
Are you gonna eat that? Are you gonna eat that?
For those of you who might not know, fat loss is essentially created because of a caloric deficit. So unless you are a beginner, or unless you're just getting started in the gym, or you're a genetic freak or something, fat loss is essentially because you have to be in a caloric deficit, which just means that you're eating or consuming less, or you're burning more energy, burning more calories than your body is required of you. So a lot of you guys might just not know that you're not in a caloric deficit. You might think that you're going to a restaurant, you're ordering an egg white omelet, you're getting a side of potatoes or something like that, but you don't know that the egg white omelet is probably doused in oil. You're probably going 200 or 300 calories over on that meal alone because you're just not really aware. Or you might be going to a restaurant ordering a salad, right? Salad sounds healthy. You just pick the salad, you're sure, that one sounds great. And the restaurant isn't in 2017, doesn't have the calories listed, because a lot of restaurants do nowadays, but salad might have 800 calories just from the dressing alone. And if you don't get the dressing on the side or opt in for a lower calorie dressing, you might just be going over your caloric deficit that you thought you were creating for yourself by choosing the healthier option. Even with peanut butter or nuts, or something that's really calorie dense, peanut butter, a really small tablespoon is 200 calories, or 2 tablespoons. A handful of nuts, which is really small, it's a sad serving size. One handful is 200 something calories. And if you have 4 servings at once, which might seem like a little tiny handful, and it's enough for you to feel more full, you might not know that you're eating 800 calories in one sitting. And that's totally fine if you are, but it might just be something that's stopping you from being in that caloric deficit, so you might not be losing fat because of that. So my recommendation for you for this tip number one is to see if you're actually in a caloric deficit. So something you can do is head to my website, amandabucci.com, or you can go to the link. It'll be the first link in the description box for this, guys. And for the podcast listeners, it'll be the first link in the blog post. So the link will direct you directly to my free macro ebook. It's just helping you calculate your macros and your calories to get yourself a baseline, really. So what I always recommend is like, just track your food for a week or two. You don't have to track your food forever. You probably shouldn't be tracking your food forever. Not tracking is not for everybody. It's not something you really have to do, but just to kind of like figure out a baseline, like, am I really going over my calories? Like, you might be maintaining around, like, let's say 2,000 calories or so, but you might be actually eating like 2,400 one day and like 1,800 one day. And just, I would recommend just tracking what you eat. Don't like adjust anything just yet. Just keep it pretty consistent from what you normally do. See how many calories you're usually eating. I would take like an average after like a week or 2 weeks. Like if you ate 1,800 on a Monday and 2,600 on Saturday, a period of 7 to 10 days maybe would just be enough to kind of calculate like, okay, here we go. This is how many calories I'm eating, and this is how much my body's maintaining at. So if you're gaining weight, you're probably eating a little bit more than your maintenance. So I would just lower that back down. Just check out that macro calculating ebook. It'll really help you out to figure out whether or not you're in that caloric deficit or not. The number 2 reason why you might not be losing weight, you might not be losing fat, is because you aren't eating enough. So I know that sounds a little funny because a lot of people think like if you just do more, like more cardio, eat less food, more is not always better, and the body is like the smartest thing, guys. Our bodies are so smart that they know when we're not eating enough and they know that when we're eating too much. That's why tracking your calories, I like doing it when I'm like specifically trying to reach a fat loss goal, because it makes it really hard for us to figure out that sweet spot where like we're eating enough but we're not eating too much, and like we're in enough of a deficit, but we have to like trick our bodies to make sure it knows that like we're not trying to kill it, we're not trying to starve it. Our bodies, like I said, are very, very aware of like whether or not we're like crash dieting, and crash dieting works for a little bit, but then you stop losing weight and you're like, what the hell, I'm eating 1,000 calories a day and doing an hour of cardio. What do I do next? Like, where do I go from here? You're probably not eating enough, and the goal is always, always, always to eat as much as humanly possible while still losing body fat. So what you want to do when you figure out your maintenance calories is to lower your calories by, let's say, 100, which probably isn't going to do you that much, but I'm just going to say it just because some people can actually just drop 100 calories and make some progress. But I would recommend like 2 to 3 to 400 of a drop to start off with. Again, it depends on your body, depends on your genetics, which we'll talk about, but I would recommend doing that, seeing how that goes for you first, because as long as you're eating enough, your body like doesn't really, you're kind of tricking your body. You can't trick your body's super smart, but you have to make sure your body knows that you're fueling it enough for it to function optimally, for it to still produce those fat burning hormones, for it to still work for you. And if you're not feeding it enough, it's like, nah, like I'm done. I'm not losing fat anymore, Amanda. You need to stop, you need to chill, you need to feed me again. So it needs to know that like you're not trying to kill it, but you're just trying to make it lose a little body fat, and you want it to take the stores of fat, not the stores of muscle. You're not trying to make it stop. You're not trying to gain weight again because it'll kick on some fat burning hormones. Your body essentially just pushes directly back at you when you're not eating enough. So like I said, just drop your calories by a bit and just keep them there for a while until you stop losing fat. So at the end of the day too, you wanna set yourself up for success when you're in a fat loss phase. So if you're that person that is crash dieting, that you've been eating 1,200 calories every single day for like months, and you've been doing an hour of cardio for like months every single day, or like way too much stuff, you might not have the option to continue lowering your calories. You need to set yourself up to succeed in a fat loss phase. And the next step for you is seriously just to like add calories back in. So like I said, you might not be eating enough, and the only place to go sometimes is up. So if you're that person that's been doing it for a really long time, and you're just like kind of keep pushing, you're killing yourself, your body is like pushing back at you, you're gaining fat, you're like feeling like shit, and it just sucks. If that person is you, honestly, just start adding calories back in slowly. Like start feeding your body, giving it what it needs, because it's going to reward you with maybe some more fat loss, maybe a little fat gain, depending on like where you're at. It depends on everybody's different situation, but I would tell you that you likely will be happy with what you see and what you feel when you add calories back into your diet after you've been dieting for so long. So the number 3 reason why you might not be losing fat is because you haven't been dieting for long enough.
Are you gonna eat that?
So if you're one of those people who has just started a fat loss phase, maybe you started Project Me with me, my fat loss cutting phase, maybe you started that with me, and it's been 6 weeks and you haven't seen that much fat loss yet. Honestly, I'm in the same position. I've seen some, but not that much. If you're doing it right, if you're doing it sustainably, if you are lowering calories at a slow pace and adding cardio at a slow pace, and you're not doing too much too quickly, you might not see results that fast. And that's okay. It's actually completely normal to not see results like super quickly. It's okay to slowly make progress, because that slow, controlled progress is going to be sustained progress. So most diets fail within a year. So most people just gain the weight right back after they go through a fat loss phase because it's not sustainable. And if you're on that crash diet, if you're on that diet that's so low calorie so quickly for so long, you're gonna gain everything right back the second you start eating like normally again, or like adding calories back in, and that's not what you want. You want to sustain the work you put in. You wanna sustain that like fat loss phase that you just put yourself through. You're not trying to just look good for like a month out of the year and then like look like crap and feel like crap that you gained it all back. It's gaining weight back isn't a bad thing, depending on like what your goal is and stuff like that. But again, you might not be dieting for that long or long enough to even see results. It might take a little bit longer, so just chill out. Don't stress about it. If you're putting in the work and following the steps, it will happen. So the biggest thing you can do is just not stress about it, guys. Just like chill, let it happen, put in the work. If you guys are like tracking your progress through your weight, your body fat percentage, your progress pictures, progress videos, whatever, and you're truly not seeing progress, stick around for the next 2 reasons why you might not be losing fat. But the number 4 reason why you might not be losing fat is because of your genetics or your hormones. So these are huge. They actually get skipped over a bit, and I don't want to tell someone that just because they're genetically gifted and that person's gonna lose fat and they're not gonna have to put in any work. Regardless of your genetics, you're going to have to work, you're gonna have to do stuff, you're gonna have to make changes, you're gonna have to be slightly uncomfortable to lose body fat. But everybody's different in terms of where they lose fat and how quickly they lose fat. So for me personally, I'll give you guys an example. For me personally, I hold a ton of weight in my legs, I hold it in my stomach, I hold it in my arms. Like my arms and my back stay leaner than like my stomach and my legs, I guess you could say. So when I lose fat, my legs and my stomach come off last. My arms come off quickly, my back loses fat more quickly in those areas. My face doesn't really gain that much fat, like maybe a little bit. My upper body is usually like the more lean part of me, and my lower half, like from my stomach down, usually gains fat more quickly, and that's where I hold it, that's where I store it, that's where it comes off last. And you can't spot reduce it, and you just have to kind of keep going in your fat loss phase for a period of 3 to 4 months, maybe 5 tops if you're just like doing it super slowly, super sustainably, and you're not making any drastic changes really quickly. I wouldn't recommend staying in a diet phase for longer than that, unless you're doing a contest prep, but still that's like a little too long. But again, genetics play a huge part in how quickly you lose body fat and how quickly you don't. So if you're one of those people that is an easy or a hard gainer and you have trouble gaining weight and you have a really easy time losing body fat, you might not be one of those people that has to be in a dieting phase for that long, and it might be kind of easy for you. But if you're one of those people that's watching this video because you're like, oh, my body just doesn't lose fat that easily, and that's me too, you might just have to like find other ways to work with your body. And when it comes to hormones, there's a ton of different hormones in your body that control fat loss and fat gain. And if those hormones are thrown off for any reason, that might be contributing to your fat loss. So for example, leptin is the fat burning hormone. Leptin is controlled by other hormones in the body. Like I think leptin is controlled by insulin. I'm not super like specifics about all the hormones and stuff like that, but I do know that leptin's a fat burning hormone. Insulin causes you to store body fat. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So cortisol has affected me in fat loss so often. Like if you are stressed, if you're one of those people that constantly carries around like a big ball of stress in your body, you're doing too much cardio, which is physical stress, you're actually just stressed about work, which is like emotional stress that can transfer over to physical stress, like your body just feels stress. The cortisol levels increase, and then your fat burning hormones lower because that cortisol levels increase. So you want your fat burning hormones to be up here, your cortisol levels to be here. If the cortisol goes up, fat burning hormones go down for sure. Your body gets affected, fat burning hormones stop, gain weight. There was actually a period of time when I was doing my first national competition prep, and I was 4 weeks out, right? I looked pretty good. I definitely looked like I was just about 4 weeks out from my show. All of a sudden, I moved across the country. It was my first time moving to California, so I packed my bags, flew from Rhode Island to California. I moved into my new place. I didn't really know anybody. My apartment wasn't furnished. I was super stressed. I gained like 5 pounds in like a week, but I was so stressed that like that was literally all from cortisol. And I was freaking out. It made me even more stressed. I was like, I'm 3 weeks out now. Like, what am I gonna do? The stress was just building and building and building. And my body was just like, nope, done, nope, done. And after I figured that out, I talked to my coach, and it was the first time I heard that like cortisol affects your fat loss, and I was like, oh, hell no, hell no. Immediately I decided to meditate. I forced my thoughts to be more positive. I was just doing everything I possibly could to like de-stress. I would make sure I got enough sleep, make sure I got enough fluids, make sure I got enough water, make sure I was, again, getting enough sleep is huge, meditating, relaxing, like using adult coloring books, those are great. Anything I could do to de-stress. And then the week later, boom, I looked like I was ready to compete. So again, fat loss can 1000% be affected by hormones. Other hormones that can affect your fat loss are ghrelin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So the hunger hormone might increase when your fat loss is stalling because it wants you to eat more, right? Like your body's like, I need to eat more food. Give me food, please. So ghrelin increases, you get more hungry. And then other hormones that can affect your fat loss is your thyroid hormone. Your thyroid is what controls your metabolism. And this hormone turns on too, again, when it realizes that you're hungry. So it's like, girl, you're dieting. I can tell I'm turning the thyroid hormone on. I'm slowing down the metabolism. So when you're dieting, your metabolism starts to slowly decrease. The thyroid hormone turns on. You could actually even have a genetic situation where you have hyperthyroidism with it, which is an overactive thyroid, or hypothyroidism, which is a underactive thyroid, and that could be affecting your weight loss as well. If you're one of those people that has always had trouble losing weight, no matter what you do, I would check out a doctor. I'm gonna link a doctor in the description box, actually. That would be really great. He's called The Doctor That Lifts. His name is Spencer, and he's awesome. I'll link him in the description box of this video to check out whether or not like thyroid issue might be something that you struggle with. But yeah, those hormones 1000% affect fat loss. Estrogen affects fat loss, testosterone, all of those things. Estrogen and progesterone is why women hold on to more body fat than men, because estrogen is something like it causes us to keep some fat on because we need it to make babies. So there's that. Those hormones could all be affecting your fat loss as well. So if you've listened to all of these options and none of them you think are you, this one might be the one. So number 4 reason why you might not be losing weight is because you're truly at a fat loss stall.
Are you gonna eat that?
So all the other reasons you might just not be at the fat loss stall phase yet. You might just be not eating enough, you might be eating too much, you might have a hormone issue that you can kind of correct, or you're just at a fat loss stall and your body has adapted to what you are doing. I would say this is probably 1% of the people watching this video or listening to this podcast, because a lot of people have to kind of take care of the basic things before they start getting into more of the specifics, which I would definitely say this is. But if you are one of those people, listen up for sure. I would say that number 1, those who are truly in a stall might be the same people that are not eating enough and doing too much cardio. That reminding you back to those people that are doing an hour of cardio, or like a lot of cardio, a decent amount, and you're dieting too much, you're eating too little, you've been doing it for a really long period of time, your body's fighting back at you. Your body's adapted to what you're doing. Literally the only way to go from there is up, guys. Like the only way to go from there is to add calories back in. So a few things that you can do, if it hasn't been that long, I would recommend implementing maybe some carb cycling, which I have a video about. I will link it right here. There's also something you can do called a diet break, which is where you add calories back in, stay at maintenance for a period of 7 to 14 days. I've done that multiple times in my contest preps. It has been an amazing way for me to continue, or for anybody to continue burning body fat, because your body's like, oh, you're feeding me again? Like, cool. I'm gonna increase those hormones, but increase them just enough, or add calories back in for just a long enough period of time for you to not like gain fat, but you kind of either maintain, or your body's like, cool, hormones good to go, let's lose fat again, like let's keep going. So that's another thing you can implement. Or it might just be time for you to start reverse dieting, guys, and adding calories back into your diet and just giving your body what it really needs. And sometimes what your body really needs isn't a fat loss phase. But if you're one of those people, like maybe I am right now, but you might just be like stalled in your fat loss. So what do you do? So the first question that I got so much on my Instagram post, which is gonna be right here, I posted and asked you guys who follow me on Instagram, maybe tell me like questions that you had about fat loss stalls. The biggest thing that I got, what do you do first? Like, what do you do when you hit a fat loss stall? So if you're one of those people that's actually just stalled and your body's just adapted, the first thing that I would do to work harder, train a little bit harder. But I say that with caution because I'm a huge advocate for training smarter, not harder. I'm not telling you to train harder and say like, push at your workouts more, add more cardio, just keep killing yourself, feel like you die at the end of your gym sessions. No, not necessarily. I'm a huge advocate again for working smarter, not harder, but sometimes you might be kind of lackadaisical in your workout. So here's what I'm trying to say. If you're training and you've just been training the same exact way for 6 weeks. So for me personally, I've been training the same way for 6 weeks. I haven't been progressively overloading that much. I've just been doing similar weights. I haven't really been pushing myself. Challenging myself is what I mean, truly, is just, you might just not be challenging yourself enough. And so what I would do there is to increase the weights of what you're doing, push yourself in the weights a little bit, add more weight, so that's more progressive overload for you, which just means that you're challenging your muscles to work harder, you're increasing and forcing an energy demand on your body. So work harder. I would also just really focus more through your lifts. So if you're just kind of going through the motions, you're just like, yeah, bicep curls or shoulder prep, like whatever, really focus and like put more of an emphasis on your muscle mind connection, because that is going to create more, again, of an energy demand. It's going to force your body to be more challenged. Try switching things up a little bit and increasing your weights, challenging yourself a little bit more. Something else that you can do is decrease rest times with your bodybuilding accessory movements. So I wouldn't decrease rest times with your compound lifts because you need that certain longer rest time when you're doing squats. Like you shouldn't be doing sets of 4 heavy squats and then doing 30-second rests in between. Like, no, you still need time to recover. But what you can do is if you're doing a superset of like face pulls and shoulder press, you can like minimize the rest time between those. And again, like I said before, progressive overload. So that just means that you're adding weight reps or sets to what you're doing, and you're progressively, like slowly, kind of like adding calories into your diet. You're adding weight volume to your training, and that's going to force your muscles to grow, force your muscles to change. And that is something that, number one, helps you retain your muscle, number one, which is a great way to continue fat loss, retaining muscle, because muscle is fat burning in and of itself. It's like it requires more energy to have muscle, so you want to keep as much of it as possible so you can keep being a fat burning furnace. And then the next thing that you guys can do, here's the big whammy here, you can lower your calories a bit. I would recommend lowering by between 100 and 300 calories when you're dropping calories, or to increase your deficit. Again, like what I really meant to say was increase your deficit. So you can do that, number one, by lowering food, so dropping your calories a little bit if you're ready to drop calories and you're just like, there's nothing else for me to do. Or you can increase your cardio a little bit, so you can add 100 to 200 to 300 calories of cardio a week, or you can add a few HIIT sessions into your current interval. You can add an extra cardio session, or you can add like 10 extra minutes to your current cardio sessions if you don't want to add a whole session in. But again, this is similar. You don't want to do too much too quickly, but you want to do enough to make those changes. So I would like math it out a little bit. I would always say that like around 10 minutes, if you're working hard enough, whether you're doing HIIT or whether you're doing steady state, is about 100 calories. So if you're adding like 10 minutes a week, you might be adding 100 calories more of a burn, and like that can be But I would say if you're adding a full 30-minute session, that's about 300 extra calories you're burning a week. So just start with that maybe. What I'm personally doing is, number one, adding in another low carb day to my week. So I'm adding in, like, instead of 3 low, 1 high, I'm doing 4 low, 1 high. I'm also adding in another steady state cardio session. So I'm doing 3 20-minute steady state cardio sessions a week. So that's 600 calories. And then I'm also doing 1 6 to 8 HIIT interval session every week on Sundays. So that's how I'm kind of increasing my deficit a little bit more without lowering how many calories I'm eating every single day yet. And then another thing you can do, like I said before, is just literally stop dieting. Like if this is your 10th, your 10th fat loss stall or something like that, and you have to keep doing more to push through, just stop dieting, guys. Increase your calories. It's gonna be okay. Enjoy food, enjoy life. It's not your time to continue dieting. You wanna set yourself up for success. You don't wanna diminish the quality of life just because you wanna lose fat a little bit and see some more abs. So that's another option. So here are actually a few more questions before we end the video and before we end the podcast. There's a few more questions that I got from my Instagram that I wanted to make sure I answered. So here are the top 2 or 3, I think. There's some answers. I have some notes here. One of the first questions is, what do you switch first, cardio or calories? What do you do first? And the answer is not that simple. It really depends. You can honestly do either one. If you feel like for me personally, I wasn't really doing that much cardio and I wanted to do some more, like I was like, I have the energy still, like let me do some more cardio. You can add cardio first, and I didn't want to lower food just yet because I'm like, I still want to keep my food. However, our bodies do adapt a little bit more quickly to the cardio that we add than to the lowering of calories. So think about that when you're choosing or thinking about it. So again, it depends on you. It doesn't really make a difference, but I would say that you see more changes more quickly if you lower food first. Next question is going to be, how long should you wait until you make changes? And this is a huge question that I get so often because people don't know, like, okay, so you get your starting macros and then you keep them for 3 months. Like, no, but you also don't change them every single week either. I would say that a period of like 2 to 3 weeks or so, maybe even 3 to 4. I haven't changed anything yet. It's been 6 weeks, but only because my first month I was making a decent amount of progress. The next 2 weeks I kind of like wasn't really paying that close attention, but I probably should have made changes around week 4, but I didn't really catch it until week 6, I guess you could say, or week 5 actually. But I would say between 2 to 4 weeks or so are when you should think about making those changes. And again, there's really no reason to change what's currently working. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, you don't have to fix it. So I would just recommend making sure you're just keeping on track and seeing what works and checking your progress and seeing if your photos are getting better, if you feel like you're like gaining weight or stalling or whatever. Just make sure you're following along with your progress and make changes accordingly, but not too quickly. And the last question that I got is, should I eat cleaner? Should I cut out bad foods from my diet, although they fit my macros or whatever? I would say that you don't have to. For me personally, I feel better if I have like those things that I know that I love, like Halo Top or whatever, but there is something to be said for choosing more wholesome foods, choosing more health foods, especially when you're in a caloric deficit. Honestly, when you're choosing foods that make your body feel good, when you're in a deficit, your body's not functioning optimally. Like, it's not getting enough nutrients from your food for it to perform at 100%. Like, it might be performing at like 90 or 80% or something like that. And when you're giving it the right foods, when you're giving it foods that it wants and needs and it craves, then number one, you're gonna be less hungry. Number two, you're just gonna feel better because you're giving it like what it needs to function. Although it's not the amount of calories it needs to function optimally, you're at least giving it the micronutrients, the macronutrients, and all of that it needs to function optimally in order for you to like sustain your health and stuff like that. Like, that's important. I have heard of plenty of people who just switch from like IFYM to clean eating or whatever, and they're doing like all clean foods or all like wholesome foods or whatever, and they see more progress. I think that's definitely just because like our bodies function better on those foods, and like maybe your water weight's decreasing, maybe you're like getting less of a reaction to some foods that might be causing some inflammation and stuff like that. Personally, I really enjoy things like Halo Top, and I will have them every once in a while because they keep this diet sustainable for me. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I can keep going when I'm eating things that I like. And I like wholesome foods. Like, I have vegetables every day, I have fruit every day, I have like salads, and I have oatmeal, and then I have like things that are still good for me, potatoes, like all that stuff. But I also enjoy things that I like, and it's fine. It's not stopping me from losing fat, and maybe I might be losing fat more quickly if I was just eating clean foods, but it's not that important to me because it's more important for me to keep it sustainable. So go ahead and look at what you're doing, look at what your fat loss is like, your diet's like, your cardio is like, and zoom out, look at the bigger picture and see what really applies to you guys. I hope you found